Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of AA Entertainment. Continuing from my list of my top 10 favorite film directors of all time, I will be discussing Tim Burton. Much like Steven Spielberg, Tim Burton is one of the first film directors whose names I became attached to, whose films I recognized, and I made it a top priority to track down all of his films so I could watch them. And just a heads up, no, Nightmare Before Christmas will not be on this list. As great of a movie as it is, and even though it is a Tim Burton story and it was produced by him, it was not directed by him, but instead it was directed by Henry Selick. So for today, here are my top 10 favorite movies from Tim Burton. Kicking off this list, Batman Returns. Due to his questionable morals and background influences of early German expressionist cinema, Tim Burton hit the nail on the head when Warner Brothers greenlit his first Batman movie, which gave the young director total creative freedom with his sequel. As dark as the first movie was, Tim Burton went all out on Batman Returns, adding even more nightmare imagery and themes of classism, sexism, abandonment, and multiple personalities within a single person. Producers and toy companies weren't too keen when the film was released with Burton's take on the Penguin character, who vomits green blood, but Danny DeVito adds layers of sympathy to an otherwise grotesque character. The film was unlike any other superhero movie, as there are no clear-cut villains or superheroes, which makes it much more heartbreaking. I would like to mention that this film mortified me when I first watched it at a young age, especially when the Penguin chewed the guy's nose off, and when I got to see a screening at a local movie theater, I was totally pumped when I discovered a Susie and the Banshees song was written for the movie. At number 9, Big Eyes. When I first saw Big Eyes in theaters, I was caught off guard, but in a good way. Big Eyes is a biopic about the now famous painter Margaret Keane, who is most well known for her paintings of, well, people with really big eyes. This movie is a total masterpiece as not only a character study, but also as a look at the beatnik era with jazz clubs and a rise of experimental art culture in the United States. Amy Adams delivers an exceptional performance as Margaret Keane, whom after leaving her husband, takes custody of her daughter and starts a new life pursuing her passion for the arts. Christoph Waltz, while he's not hunting Jews, plays a lovable misogynistic parasite that takes the credit for his new wife's artwork. He's also absolutely engaging and terrifying as his violent and abusive behavior skyrockets but manages to put on an optimistic persona for the public. At number 8, Mars Attacks. Although it is often considered a sore thumb in the director's otherwise exemplary filmography, Mars Attacks really hit close to home for me as a Brooksian take on the alien invader movies of the 1950s, a genre that I grew up watching as a kid religiously. Mars Attacks is simultaneously dark and violent, yet tongue-in-cheek while these aliens come down to planet Earth and attempt to take over the world, mostly by blowing up humans to smithereens. This is especially engaging as not only do we get to see a distinguished filmmaker's take on a beloved genre, but being made in 1996, Tim Burton was allowed to add a more violent and satirical edge. I just wish Burton stuck with his original idea to make it just a bit more graphic where humans would be literally shredded to pieces. But that's just me. At number 7, Frankenweenie. And yes, I am talking about the 1984 short. Even though I very much did enjoy the animated remake, I'm going to be spotlighting the OG, which along with Vincent was featured at the tail end of my VHS copy of A Nightmare Before Christmas. Featuring Shelley Duvall, Daniel Stern, and Sofia Coppola, Frankenweenie is a brilliant take on the black and white monster movies Burton and I grew up on. The story is semi-autobiographical as it's about a boy growing up in the suburbs who is obsessed with monster movies and makes some of his own during his spare time. After a heartbreaking incident in which his dog is run over by a car, the boy decides to bring back his pal in the way of Frankenstein. I really admire this short as it ideally takes an innocent part of the director's childhood while tackling a real-life tragic event, allowing the director to come to terms with his heartbreak. At number 6, Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands is absolutely brilliant. Tim Burton is very open about the movies that influenced him in his career, and Edward Scissorhands, in my opinion, fully explores that and why. To top it all off, he cast the legendary Vincent Price in his last cinematic role. Much like Tim Burton, I grew up watching the same movies with monsters and gothic atmospheres, and with Edward Scissorhands, Tim Burton adds a fairy tale twist to the genre by creating a sympathetic protagonist and taking him from his magical realm into the mundane, cookie-cutter society of banks, loans, and mortgages. Edward Scissorhands is a dissection of the gothic horror genre and who can do it better than Tim Burton? At number 5, Vincent. Even though it's a short film, just like Frankenweenie, Tim Burton sure as hell knew what he was doing and went all out when he made this short film. I first saw this short as a bonus short film alongside Frankenweenie at the end of the videotape for The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it mentally scarred me. Although the satire is a lot more prevalent as an adult, this short is eerie and morbid and alienating as fuck. Vincent is a 7-year-old boy who lives in a peaceful home but wants to be Vincent Price, who's also the narrator for this macabre film. Vincent Malloy would much rather sit in his room all day reading Edgar Allan Poe than to run around outside and make friends. As his already fucked up mind deteriorates, he imagines himself torturing and murdering his entire family, and even suspects he buried someone in his backyard in a fit of madness alive. Don't let the fact this short was made in the Disney studio fool you. This is absolutely nightmare-inducing. At number 4, Corpse Bride. The fact that this film was marketed to kids and got away with a PG is quite a miracle. Corpse Bride is a hilariously morbid satire on, well, society. Victor, voiced by Johnny Depp, is the son of a lower-class family who was arranged to marry the daughter of a supposed wealthy family. Both families think the other is rich. Victor is shy and timid, and despite falling in love with his bride-to-be, he gets cold feet, and during a walk in the woods, he resurrects the corpse to a bride who was brutally murdered on her wedding night. Victor is given a glimpse into the afterlife, but everybody loves him so much, he's arranged to marry Emily, the corpse bride, voiced by none other than Helena Bonham Carter. Being an animation film, Tim Burton depicts the world of the living as bleak, colorless, and soulless, and the afterlife as the polar opposite. Corpse Bride is an amazing gothic tale that questions the true meanings of love, wealth, and the importance of status. But it's technically a kid's movie, so you can show it to any kid and not feel bad about it. At number 3, Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd, on paper, should not work. And that's a good thing. Based on the Stephen Sondheim musical, Sweeney Todd is a bloody as-hell tale of revenge, classism, and cannibalism, set in the even more horrific Victorian London. Johnny Depp stars as the demon barber who returns to his barbershop in search of his wife and daughter after his stint in prison, but finds out although his daughter is alive, his wife is not. The barber decides to get his revenge by going back to business and slashes the throats of all of his customers. Helena Bonham Carter plays Mrs. Lovett, the owner of a failing pie shop, assists Mr. Todd by grinding up his victims into meat pies and serves them to unsuspecting Londoners. Although Tim Burton's films tend to be morbid, it's usually in a playful manner, but Sweeney Todd is absolutely bleak and depressing as Tim Burton shines a light on the horrendous living conditions of Victorian London, including horrendous acts of child labor and abuse, and we even witness a boy sentenced to hang for pickpocketing. That being said, I absolutely love this movie because not only does it feature the amazing trio of Burton, Depp, and Carter, but it's also a gothic horror story featuring gallons of gore, and it's a musical. What's not to love? At number 2, Ed Wood. Not to be confused with Edward Scissorhands, Ed Wood is not only one of my top 10 favorite Tim Burton movies, but it's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Ed Wood is a biographical film about the notorious B-picture movie maestro Edward D. Wood Jr., who is most famous for his schlocky and cheaply made movies featuring Bela Lugosi and Todd Johnson, many of which I have seen, including Glen or Glenda, Plan 9 from Outer Space, and Bite of the Monster. This was the first film I ever saw that showed what really goes on behind the scenes of any given film production, but instead of being a cautionary tale of broken dreams, Ed Wood is a filmmaker I identify with, someone who's just obsessed with film and wants to celebrate it by making movies of his own and won't let anybody alter his vision. At number 1, my favorite Tim Burton movie of all time, Sleepy Hollow. After seeing this movie at a really young age, it holds a very special place in my heart. Starring Johnny Depp as Ichabod Crane, a science-obsessed detective with a troubled past is sent to the quiet town of Sleepy Hollow to investigate a series of beheadings. While in town, he falls in love with Katrina Van Tassel, a nature-loving witch. As he furthers his investigation, Ichabod discovers that the residents of Sleepy Hollow are hiding a lot of secrets involving the supernatural. Unlike in the original story by Washington Irving, the Headless Horseman is very real in this adaptation. The ideal blend of Grimm's fairy tales, straight-up horror, and Tim Burton's good old sense of macabre humor blend perfectly together in this modern take on the classic ghost story, which came out the year I was born. I would like to mention that I showed this to a friend of mine who not only hates horror, but also straight up loathes Tim Burton's style. And after watching it from start to finish, he absolutely loved it. Thank you so much for watching this. And down below in the description, I am going to put up a link. I am planning on directing a short horror film called Lilith, and I am aiming to shoot it in June. And yeah, right now I'm trying to raise funds for the film. It is based, of course, on a script that I wrote, yours truly. So yeah, I'm going to put the link down below in the description, and every little bit helps. And thank you so much for watching this video. And while you're at it, let me know what your favorite Tim Burton movie is.